So does this feel like as big a weekend as what maybe people outside the stadium, what fans are talking about, and what the national press is talking about with 35-0?
Well, we try not to feel that. We talk about not making one game bigger than another, and it really comes down to playing the game the right way. It shouldn't matter who we play, but of course, we are human, and that's what happens. And so the tendency is, we know how big it is. The girls know how big it is. We're not going to shy away from that, but we've really just got to play some good, sound softball. And I know we've been struggling a little bit with the bats lately, but hopefully that's a little blip. It's hard to kind of keep going up on that trajectory, without having some sort of downward blip there. And so I'm hoping that it's just going to be a temporary thing, and we'll get back to business and start scoring some runs.
You said that you acknowledged that you guys are undefeated and potentially set a new record. How much do you talk about it? How much do you let them talk about it? How sort of zoned in on that full season goal is everybody?
Well, what we did, we kind of split the season in two, and once we started into Pac-12, it was 0-0 again. We kind of forgot, I don't know what it was, 24 or whatever it was, but we kind of forgot that half the season. So right now we're kind of like, I don't know, was it 0-8 or something like that? I don't even know, but really just trying to understand that the game doesn't know that. The game's going to reward the team that plays the best, and we just try to keep the consistent message day in and day out. I think sometimes in the past we've been guilty of making some games bigger than other games, and I think that may have happened last year. We kind of felt a little bit of pressure, and I talked to them about pressure's perceived. It's not really something that happens, it's what you perceive it to be. And so hopefully we're not going to perceive it to be a huge weekend. That's just another weekend in the schedule, and our goal is to get better after this weekend.
You talk about the pressure of being undefeated. Is there any pressure added because Arizona is also undefeated in Pac-12 play?
Well, we can't control what Arizona does until we play them, so yeah, we got to try and keep up with them. There's no doubt about it. If the thing that separates the teams that are going to win this championship and ones that don't are the ones that get the sweeps, and so there was pressure last weekend playing ASU, in that last game. There's always that. You don't want to drop those games if you can, because anytime you get a team like Arizona, they're pretty good. They've lost one game themselves the whole year, and so yeah, I guess. But there's always going to be pressure. It all depends how you look at it. So really, we just control what we can do, and that's it really. If we continue to get good pitching, good defense, we'll scratch some runs, and that's what we do. Our motto this year is scrappy, and I think we're living up to it right now, especially the last few games.
Well, and last week too, you said you also acknowledged the fact that in one poll you are #1, and in another poll you're now at #2. Is this the kind of series, I know you don't maybe make that a goal, but that if you do win this series, that maybe you guys can catapult up to #1 in the rankings?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. The RPI is the one you want to be in the top 8 for sure, to hopefully get home field advantage. That's the big thing. It's always been our goal, but the rankings are, especially the NFCA and the ESPN are human rankings, and they don't mean much to the RPI rankings that are done by the NCAA. But it's a great honor to be #1 ranked in the country, and now #2. That's great, and I'm not going to say it's not. We know it, and it's a lot of fun, and hopefully we can continue to play well, and we'll see how things end up. But we all know it's at the end of the year, who's #1, and that's what really counts.
What do you see in UCLA? Same team as always tough?
Well, they're actually hitting the ball a lot better. They've been struggling the first part of the year with their offense, and man, they really lit it up pretty good against Washington last weekend. Scored a bunch of runs, and they always seem to do that this time of year. It's like a switch they flip. I don't know where they find that switch, but I wouldn't mind finding it. It's amazing how they continuously do that. So we expect they'll be very good offensively, and we need to kind of get the secret against Rachel Garcia. She's a redshirt freshman, one of the highest recruited kids in I think she was National Player, Gatorade Player of the Year. She's an excellent pitcher. So we need to kind of work our magic against her and see if we can come out with some runs.
How's Megan kind of mentored Maggie throughout this? I know they're kind of different personalities, but
absolutely, they're like the other ends of the spectrum. It's amazing, but I think they all work well together. They have fun. They kind of have a little bit of banter going, a little competition in the bullpen, and I told them the other day, what makes Maggie better is Megan being better, and the same with Miranda. They all can kind of feed off each other, and that's what I want to see happen. And truthfully, I don't know who I'm going to throw this weekend and in what order. I'm going to have to see how it all matches up. I think I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about throwing Megan Kleist now after last night. night, and then the way she came out Sunday. If we'd left Saturday, it would have been like, oh boy, you know. But she certainly looked very good last night, and hope she continues that.
Did you go into yesterday hoping to give Maggie a break through the 2 games?
Absolutely, yeah. We wanted to give her a break. I mean, she hasn't been overworked. I mean, if you look at, you know, she's had, I think maybe 80 innings or something, 50 less innings than O'Toole, you know, which is quite a bit. So she hasn't been overworked, nothing like we did with Jess Moore one year or Sheridan Hawkins. So it is something that's on our mind. We want to keep her fresh. Now, she has been in a lot of games. You know, she's come in relief and everything else, and sometimes mentally that can drag you down. But you know, hopefully she feels fresh and ready to go this weekend.
You guys recruit well, and did once again this fall with the 4-person class, but
yeah.
You also lost 10 letter winners and a big chunk was legitimate stars. Did you at all think this year might be like a bridge year, a transition, or did you see something like this might be possible?
Well, you know, I knew what we had coming in, and I was hopeful, but you never know, you know, and you know, especially with 2 very, very good pitchers coming in, you always think, okay, we can keep the runs down, we can kind of find a way to scratch from runs. I knew we lost a lot of power. It wasn't really the same kind of offense, but you just don't know until you get out there. You know, I didn't know that Danica Mikado was turn from a 250 hitter into a 400 hitter. I mean, that's a pleasant surprise, but I didn't know our 400 hitter was going to turn into a 250 hitter. So, you know, Jenna Lilly. So, but thinking about Jenna Lilly, she's playing awesome defense. She's contributing with on-base percentage and just being a real leader on the team. She's not letting it. You know, some players can get really down. They just be like a drain, and she's not being a drain. She's being one of those uplifting forces on our team.
Well, what's helped put kind of all these new pieces together into what's been obviously a sensational 35-0 start? Are there some overriding themes that you think have helped you guys this year?
Well, I think again, you know, we're trying to put less pressure on one game. It's about getting better each day, and looking. You know, we're consistent with our blueprint. We have an offensive blueprint and a defensive blueprint, and they come down to little parts of the game. Simple things like pitchers having 13 pitch innings. You know, if we do that kind of thing, there's less pressure on us, and that's what we got to do. It's like, you know, just basically down to just the basics. Do the basics better than anybody else. So.
Go ahead. A couple of years ago, I know your pitching philosophy was treat it like baseball. Somebody rides the first few innings, they have someone else, and then you have somebody come in and close. In Pac-12 play, are you sort of approaching it with that same mindset, or do you want a pitcher to go a full game and use somebody the next day?
Well, that could be still evolving. You know, it could be a situation where, you know, heck, I know that Maggie Ballant can do both. You know, she can start and she can close. I think Miranda Elish is a pretty good once or twice through the order kind of kid, you know, until she develops a little bit of control with her changeup. You know, I know Kleist is a much better starter than she is a reliever. So they kind of find their way into those kind of roles. And but at this point, you know, I'm looking at 3 starters in the rotation. Now that could change at any time depending on how we use them in the first game of the series or second game of the series. And so I hate to paint myself into a corner with that, but yeah, heck, I mean, Maggie Ballant, if she's throwing well, get her out there.
Senior team played for a couple of years now, and you talk about those new recruits that Andrew was talking about, and like the energy never seems to really change. You always have a very loose team. Is that something you try to keep in mind, especially when you are off to a 35-0 start and go into LA?
Yeah, it's something I learned, you know, when I was on the men's game for a long time, and you know, we wouldn't treat it that way. It'd have to be like business, you know, game face, and you know, come on out there. But you do that with the girls, and it just doesn't work. And I think I found that over a few years is that hey, they need to play loose. They need to really have fun out there and take less pressure. You know, those kids do not want to disappoint, and the more pressure you put on them, you know, I think they don't perform quite as well. So we really have tried to keep a loose, relaxed, yet business-like. You know, once you cross those lines, hey, let's go a little bit, but they need to feel loose.
You talked about the fundamentals and how once you do that right, pressure really shouldn't be too much of a problem because you put in the work. Do you find yourself teaching more this year with a fairly young group, fairly new group? Oh,
well, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of our game plan practice, you know, is making sure we do the fundamentals. You know, it's like anything, you know, if we do a first and third, for example, all you have to do is check the runner, throw the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball back. You know, it sounds very simple, but when it's under pressure and people are doing things, it can go out the window. But the more we can do the fundamentals correctly, the more chance we have of being successful. And the same comes the same with an approach at plate. You know, we make sure they have a certain approach. You know, they go to the plate and they're thinking of nothing, they're thinking of something. And so we try to give them, you know, their final thought when they go in the batter's box. You know, what is it we want to do? Because they need to think of something.
How do you feel about the performance of some of your younger players that you tried to rotate through yesterday?
You know, it was interesting. You know, Maggie, a few of them, like Maddie Bishop, really kind of struggled, you know, the first couple of bats. And, you know, I was close to not batting her that third time. I thought, you know what, let's go. And then she came with a nice line drive. And we're just hoping some of those kids catch fire, because that's one of the things I'm looking for right now, is somebody that can come in a situation as a pinch hitter and maybe uplift the team if we're struggling. And, you know, right now, you know, it's either April Utic or Maddie Bishop, or, you know, maybe Haley Cruz had a couple of doubles yesterday. I thought she did real well. You know, maybe a Cherishburg, somebody that can come in and help this team if we're, you know, in a bit of a funk.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, guys.